What is your guess? I can't go into that store ever again story. Not a store, but a public library. We're at the counter, and the librarian is scanning the books we've selected. She was generously sized. My little brother, 4 or 5 at the time, tugs my mom down to whisper something in her ear. He was rather new to the concept of whispering. He put his hand up to shield his lips from the librarian. Despite all this, he says, dash about the librarian, dash at standard speaking volume. Hey mom, you ever notice how fat that lady is? Mom tried to play it off by saying something akin to he thinks it's okay to say it to others cause he says it to me. But my mom's not fat. It did not work. We used to go there every day when my mom didn't want to have to hire a babysitter to watch us during the summer. She'd bring us to her office, and let us walk across the street to the public library to play games on their Windows Vista PCs, or just read books. She'd always come to pick us up when she was done with work. She started looking for babysitters soon after. I did something similar when I was 5 or 6. Still embarrassed about it. My dad and I were walking into Walmart, and a very fat lady rolled past us on one of those motorized carts. I yelled to my dad, "Look dad, a fat person. She's fat." I'm sure my dad was dying of embarrassment, haha. I tripped up over my shoelace and crashed into a shelf and broke it. The manager chased me out of the store. Edit, cheers for silver my dears. I guess you must have been young? If you were an older lady, they might have been worried about you being injured or something. I was 14, so yeah. So an old lady, then, if you're talking dog years. When I was a kid, my family went to a pizzeria, and before the food came I went to inspect the plumbing. They had those sinks where you press down on the knob and the water would flow, with the knob slowly raising back up before it would turn off after 20 seconds. I used my fist and hit the top of the knob and the thing just popped off and a huge geyser of water was erupting non-stop. Me and another kid were in there, we looked at each other and just bolted from the bathroom. I got back to my seat and just sat there silent. Then my mom went to use the bathroom, and when she came back she told us this story of how there was a pool in the bathroom hallway and the manager and an employee were in the men's room slipping and sliding trying to shut off the water. My whole family was laughing at the story, but I just sat there silent. They asked me what's wrong and I told them it was me that did it. They never fail to mention it every time we drive past a pizzeria, even now 20 years later. I've never stepped foot in one since then. Edit. Since a lot of people are asking, inspecting the plumbing was a joke my family made when I'd go to pee at a restaurant. I'd usually be a glutton about free drink refills, and would always have to get up and pee mid-meal, so my family always joked I was obligated to inspect the plumbing at every establishment. Dramatic silence. Can't you see, mother? It was me. I did it. It was my fault. How do you expect me to live with that? Went on a first date with this girl to a new restaurant in town. She proceeded to get sloppy drunk and made a huge scene. From the classic could not control the volume of her voice to insisting on trying to show me and some other gentleman nearby what kind of underwear she had on while loudly insisting that she's a good girl though. The server we had seemed to get that I was not a willing part of this, but I was so mortified there's no way I'd ever go back. Note to self, never go on a date in a restaurant you really like. Edit, first date. True story, one of the best first dates I ever had was going to this corny chain sandwich restaurant that my social group always made fun of. I almost didn't go when my date suggested it, but then he explained his rationale: we can embarrass ourselves as much as we like because no one either of us knows ever goes here. So you guys married now or what? My girlfriend fist bumped the clerk when he was actually reaching to grab a paper we had just signed. Anyway, we don't go to that tire kingdom anymore. I fist bumped a cashier at a grocery store a couple days ago. He was just handing me my change. Never buying groceries again, it brings up dark memories. That just means keep the change. You're their new favorite customer, and they miss you. You filthy animal. I pissed all over the floor of a toy store when I was a toddler. My poor dad was mortified, but the staff were very nice about it. The store's closed now, which really sucks. I don't think I actually remember the name of the place. I wouldn't beat a worried man. I used to work in a toy store, and you would be surprised by the amount of kids who vomit and pee out of excitement from going to a toy store. Are you sure you don't work in a pet store? Do barbershops count? Decided to get a haircut whilst having a cold. Sneezed and farted at the same time. Never went back. Oh God, I finally have a reason to share this story. One of the first jobs I had, I approached my boss in his office to discuss a report. As I was standing near him, he was sitting in his chair reading the file on his desk. I felt a sneeze come on. Knowing that I didn't have time to grab a tissue, I just turned away from him. However, the sneeze held off, but the gas in my stomach did not. I crop dusted the poor man. Embarrassed, I whipped my body back around to face him, and the centripetal force of my motion must have knocked my sinuses loose. I sneezed upon completing the spin, but was in too much shock to cover my face. I gave my boss both an aura of noxious odor and mucus spewed across his face. You know how in department stores, when they have one of those display bathrooms, they have that piece of plexiglass that goes across the toilet that says something along the lines of "not a real toilet. Don't be an idiot and pee in this." Those barriers didn't exist in the 80s when I was a young kid. Mom looked up and saw me with my panties off, holding my dress above my waist and sprinting for the toilet. She did not catch me in time. Edit, thanks so much for my first silver. I'll tell my mom, and maybe it will help to ease a bit of the embarrassment and shame this event caused her. I'm sorry for you and your mom. That must have been horrifying for her at the time. This is the one answer that had me dying. I did the exact same thing in the early 2000s, can't look at a Lowe's the same. I used to go to the same haircut place since I was in kindergarten until I was in my teens. One day I go for a haircut and get this new, fairly attractive woman. As she's starting, I start to sweat. Now sometimes when I was younger my head would get really hot and my head would sweat when I was in put on the spot sometimes. Anxiety, I guess, no idea, but it's mostly gone away thankfully. Usually a few drops of sweat will roll down my face when this happens, but not today. It was like someone was standing over me, slowly pouring a bottle of water slowly over my head. It just kept going and going. Eventually the girl mentions, "Wow, you must be really hot." I'm already very nervous, and blurt out the first thing that pops into my head, "Yeah, it must be because you're pretty." I'm not sure why this is happening. You're pretty, but it's not like you're that pretty. So pretty much as soon as the last words are leaving my mouth, I start asking myself, why in God's name would you say that? Now I'm even more embarrassed, and I have to sit through a haircut feeling like an idiot, a drippy wet idiot. I spent the rest of the haircut praying for it to be done quickly, or for a meteor to come through the ceiling and put me out of my misery. The girl handled the rest of the haircut like a goddamn pro, no idea why she didn't just kick me out. She finished, I paid, gave her a huge tip, and now I drive farther to get my haircut done somewhere else. Yeah, it must be because you're pretty. Okay, not all that smooth, but she might be flattered and give you a smile. Not too bad. I'm not sure why this is happening. Alright, starting to ramble here, but she might write it up to you being nervous or something. Still okay. You're pretty, but it's not like you're that pretty. Good God, man, what the hell? In 1983 at age 17 I went into a pharmacy. I bought something and somehow I was given £50 too much change. I didn't say anything and left. To this day I've still not gone back. I have felt guilty ever since. I went into a small shop to get a key made. I paid with a 10 and the guy carefully counted and recounted my change. Finally he handed me $15. I realized that he was illiterate and or couldn't read. I didn't know what to do or say because I didn't want to embarrass him, and I certainly didn't want him to lose his job. Apparently the boss was out running an errand and this guy was his assistant. So I just acted like he had made a non-illiteracy based mistake. "Oh, hey, I think you gave me the wrong bills, that's too much." I then made sure that he gave me the correct change. Then I gave him a cheery thank you. And left. It's weird, but nothing in life really prepares you for how to handle a situation like this. All I can say is that it was strangely embarrassing, for me.